People in our circle told the same joke at every gathering. Jason's wife can't give him children, so she sends women to his bed every day. I wish the hag at my house had that kind of sense. They had no idea that my mother-in-law, Kate, was the one who had found those women and used my name to send them in. The first time, Jason Gibson threw the woman out and had a terrible fight with me. Afterward, he spent over $10 million on jewelry to make it up to me at the auction house. The second time it happened, he had barely touched her hand when he threw up. Then, he fought with me again. Afterward, he bought an estate and told me I would be the only woman by his side. That was until the 10th woman. This time, he shut the bedroom door and did not come out all night. We stopped fighting. We stopped speaking. Everyone thought I would do anything to secure my place in the Gibson family and hang on to them for the rest of my life. But when I finally took out the divorce agreement, no one believed it. Not even Jason himself. After the innocently sweet girl, Sylvia Brown, followed Jason into the bedroom, I sat alone on the living room sofa and listened to the sensual sounds from behind the door all night. At dawn, when the skies were just starting to light up, Jason came out of the room shirtless. The smell of intimacy slipped through the crack in the door, and it made my stomach churn. He stopped in front of me and coldly asked, "Are you satisfied now?" I raised my eyes and looked at him. "I think you're the one who's satisfied." His temper flared. "You keep on finding women for me every day. I don't think you're trying to give me an heir. I think you're just sick of me after a decade of marriage. Fine, I'll give you what you want. I won't touch you again from now on. When Sylvia wakes up, drive her back to her campus." I stood up and forced the tremor to stop in my voice before asking one last question. "Do you love her?" "Yes, I love her. But don't worry, you'll always be my wife. Have someone clean out a guest room tomorrow. You'll move in there, and she'll stay with me in the master bedroom." Then, he went straight into the bathroom. As the shower was turned on, tears rolled down my cheeks. When we had nothing a decade ago, he had held my hand and stood with me before his mother, who had opposed our marriage. He had also spoken with the same conviction. "I love her. I'll only ever love her in this life." Now the love that had once belonged only to me had finally been given to someone else. After daybreak, I did not drive Sylvia back to campus. I went to a law firm instead. As the lawyer and I went through our marital assets, I realized in sadness that even after our 10 years of marriage, I still had nothing. Everything Jason had given me was in his name. Even the company he had started after I sold my family heirlooms did not have a single share under my name. The only thing I had was the $100,000 in pocket money deposited on time every month. But even that account belonged to him. By noon, I took the divorce papers to the company to see Jason. His brows furrowed together, and he threw the papers onto the desk. "Clara, why didn't I realize that you were this greedy? As long as you remain my wife, the villa and properties I gifted you are yours. But once we separate, you can forget about taking any of it." My heart sank. I never realized how big the difference was between being loved and not being loved. When Jason loved me, the whole world was mine to do as I wanted. When he stopped loving me, he would not even let me breathe freely. I did not want to argue with Jason anymore, so I took out the second agreement and said, "This one says I'll leave with nothing and only take my personal belongings. Sign it." Jason slammed his hand on the desk and stood up. "Do you want to get away from me that badly?" Suddenly his phone rang. He answered it and his face turned pale. The next second he slapped me before I even knew what was going on, and blood seeped from the corner of my mouth. "Didn't I tell you to drive Sylvia back to her campus? Why did you have to go draft some damn divorce agreement? She got into a car accident. You're so useless. After all these years, what have you ever done besides staying home and living off me? Fine. You want a divorce, right? Let's do it then." He signed the agreement that left me with nothing and threw it in my face. "Come with me to the hospital and apologize to Sylvia." Then, he dragged me out of the office like an animal. The moment we entered the hospital room, Sylvia started crying. She showed Jason her slightly red wrist, her eyes full of pain. "Jason, it hurts so much." He gently blew on her wrist. "It won't hurt after I blow on it." Watching them, I thought of the time Jason and I had sold ice cream from a street stall. Snow had filled the sky and my hands had ached from the cold. He had warmed them with his breath just as gently. "It won't hurt after I blow on them." My eyes reddened at the memory, and my heart started to ache too. But Jason simply glared at me as he yelled, "You still have the nerve to cry? This is all your fault. Apologize to Sylvia now." I stood my ground. "No." He picked something up from the bedside table and hurled it at my head. The heavy metal object struck me, and blood ran down my forehead. He still yelled at me and said, "I must have spoiled you rotten all these years. You don't even have basic manners anymore. When you do something wrong, you apologize." Sylvia cried out as she grabbed his hand. "Jason, don't. Clara will get angry. We still have to live under the same roof. I'm not worried about myself, but I don't want anything to happen to the baby in me." My heart dropped. I thought today was the first time they had met. I did not expect them to already have a child. Jason's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful, Sylvia. You've done a great service for my family." Then, he stood and kicked the back of my knee. I lost my balance and dropped to one knee. "Apologize." I forced myself back up, but he kicked me down again. Then, his cold voice sounded beside my ear. "Have you forgotten that Lily is also in this hospital?" As he spoke, he took out his phone and made a call. "Stop all of Lily's medical payments and throw her out of the hospital." I panicked and grabbed his leg. "No! Jason, do you have any conscience left? I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't apologize, Lily dies." He kicked me in the chest in disgust, and I knocked my head on the floor. 3, 2, I immediately turned to Sylvia and said, "All of this is my fault. Please forgive me." Tears and blood covered my face. When I raised my head, even Jason froze for a moment. Then, he crouched and wiped my face with a tissue. "Enough. Take good care of Sylvia from now on." I then reminded him, "Jason, we'll be getting our divorce certificate in 30 days. The warmth on Jason's face disappeared immediately as I reminded him about the divorce, and it was replaced by contempt. "You're a housewife in your 30s. You haven't worked in a decade. Do you really want to end up begging on the street? Everyone knows that even if every couple in the world got divorced, you'd never leave me. Besides, isn't this what you wanted? For me to have a child? Go see Lily. I want some time alone with Sylvia." Later, I walked into Lily's hospital ward like a walking corpse. I started crying as I looked at her thin face. Our parents had died young. Lily, who was 3 years younger than me, was the only family I had left. The first year after Jason founded his company, a wealthy heir assaulted her. I called the police without hesitation, but Jason stopped me. He said the man had promised to invest a huge sum in his company, enough to change its fate. Even if this goes to court, nothing will happen to him with his family's influence. Lily's reputation will be ruined too. In the end, I gave in, but Lily broke completely. She jumped from the 6th floor and had been in a coma ever since. Jason had arranged for her to stay in the best hospital, keeping her alive until now. That had always been the responsibility he was supposed to bear. I had never expected him and his mother to use Lily against me. That was because his mother had threatened me with Lily too. If you tell anyone I'm the one sending these women to Jason, I'll have someone pull Lily's oxygen tube. You can't even give Jason an heir. You forced me to do this. Their words were like knives, stabbing deeper and deeper into my heart. I asked out loud, Lily, will you leave with me? The doctor said Sylvia was about a month pregnant, but the pregnancy was unstable, so she needed to stay in the hospital for a few days. Jason stayed with her day and night. I finally had a chance to breathe. I went home, took the few pieces of jewelry I had left, and sold them. Over the years, Jason had told everyone in our circle how many expensive jewels he had bought for me, but his mother had taken almost all of them. She said I rarely socialized anyway, so there was no need for me to keep so many valuables at home. As for the card Jason gave me for my monthly pocket money, his mother checked every penny I spent. That was why I could not touch that money now. With the money from the jewelry sales, I contacted a nursing home in a small town near my hometown. After the divorce, I planned to take Lily there with me. Then, I rented a small apartment near the hospital. There were still many days before we could get the divorce certificate. There was no way I could live under the same roof as Sylvia. When I returned to the villa to pack, I took down our enormous wedding photo. Then, a document envelope fell from behind it. Confused, I opened it. The papers inside had already yellowed with age. It was a consent form for a liver transplant. My name was clearly signed on it, but the recipient was the son of a powerful official. I collapsed to the floor, completely stunned. 8 years ago, Jason had suddenly developed liver disease and needed a transplant. I happened to be a match, so I had the surgery without hesitation. After I left the hospital, his company seemed to have turned itself around and grown rapidly. I had thought that maybe the gods had finally seen our hard work and decided to favor us for once. I had never expected all of it to be bought with my liver. The man I had loved for more than a decade had been plotting against me every step of the way. Just as I was crumbling, my phone rang. It was a wealthy woman I had gotten to know for Jason's career's sake. The wife of the rich man sent me an invitation to a charity auction. My husband is out of the country. Come with me. I had planned to refuse, but my heart skipped a beat when I saw the list of the lots for auction. The emerald bracelet on it was my family heirloom. I had sold it for $1.2 million so that Jason could start his business. After Jason became successful, I tried to buy it back, but someone else had already bought it. My fists tightened. There was still money left in the account. I had saved somewhere between $1 and $2 million over the years. No matter what, I had to get that bracelet back. I did not expect Jason and Sylvia to be there as well. Clara, I'm moving into the villa tonight. Thank you for taking care of me from now on. Jason ordered me to. When we get back, prepare some chicken soup for her. I ignored them and waited anxiously for my family heirloom to appear. When the final lot was revealed, Jason stiffened beside me. Like me, he recognized it immediately. He turned to me. I'll bid on it for you. Before I could answer, Sylvia wrapped her arm around his arm and asked sweetly, "It's so beautiful. I like it very much. Will you give it to me?" Jason nodded without hesitation. Then, he said to me, "I'll give it back to you when she's tired of it." I blurted, "No." The starting bid was $300,000 and I immediately raised my paddle. I did not expect Jason to raise the bid straight to $1 million. The result was obvious. I lost. After the auction, a staff member brought the bracelet over. I looked at Jason, almost begging. "You know how important this is to me. Give it to me, and I'll pay you back later." But the moment I finished speaking, Sylvia lifted her hand and knocked the bracelet to the floor. It immediately broke into several pieces. Furious, I slapped her. She shrieked and threw herself into Jason's arms, sobbing. I didn't mean to. Jason flew into a rage and kicked me several feet away. Then, he took out his phone and said, "Throw Lily out of the hospital. Clara, you really won't learn unless I teach you a lesson." Terrified, I tried to run forward and beg him, but the bodyguards threw me out of the venue. Outside, rain poured down on the streets. I could not get a cab at all. I took off my heels and ran barefoot toward the hospital like a madwoman, but I was still too late. By the time I moved my bloodied feet to the trash bin behind the hospital and found Lily, she was already a cold corpse. I called Jason and demanded, "Are you still a human? Would you have everything you have today without Lily? How could you be so cruel as to kill her?" But Sylvia's voice came from the other end. Then, Jason said with disdain, "Stop lying to me. I didn't actually tell the hospital to throw her out. Hurry home and make the chicken soup. Behave yourself." After he hung up, I laughed until my eyes turned red. I had planned to wait quietly for 30 days and end our marriage peacefully. Since he had shown me no mercy, it was only fair for me to show him none in kind. After I took care of Lily's body, I walked into the police station with a thick stack of documents. They were the papers I had found with my liver transplant consent form. I would send Jason to hell.
And I have so much dirt on that bastard. Not even God would be able to drag him from hell. The police station fell silent as I placed the stack of documents on the desk. The officer flipped through them one by one. The further he read, the grimmer his expression became. The liver transplant consent form, the falsified financial records, the evidence showing how Gibson Group had obtained several government contracts through illegal payments, the medical records proving that Jason had used my donor compatibility to secure favors from powerful people, and finally, the recordings. Years ago, after Jason convinced me to drop the charges against the man who assaulted Lily, something in me had broken. I had started keeping records, phone calls, meetings, conversations, every compromise, every dirty deal. every betrayal. I had never intended to use them, because I had loved him. Now that love was buried beside Lily. I want to report everything, I said quietly. The officer nodded. We'll investigate. For the first time in 10 years, I walked out of a building feeling lighter. 3 days later, the storm began. At first, it was only rumors. A government official was suddenly taken in for questioning. Then another. Then several executives connected to Gibson Group disappeared from public view. Stockholders panicked. The company's shares dropped 20% in a single morning. Jason was still unaware. He was busy preparing a lavish welcome banquet for Sylvia and their unborn child. His mother nearly floated around the villa with happiness. My grandson will finally inherit everything. She ordered servants to redecorate half the mansion. She even had my belongings thrown into garbage bags and dumped outside. I watched from across the street. Then I smiled, because neither of them knew what was coming. The next morning, the police arrived at Gibson Group headquarters. Then the tax bureau. Then financial investigators. Then prosecutors. Employees watched in horror as boxes of documents were carried away. News cameras crowded outside. Within hours, every major media outlet was reporting the same headline. Gibson Group under criminal investigation. Jason called every connection he had. Nobody answered. Those who did answer hung up almost immediately, because the official who had protected him for years had already been arrested. The man whose son received my liver had become the centerpiece of a corruption scandal. And Jason's name was attached to every piece of it. That evening, Jason finally appeared at my apartment. He looked nothing like the confident billionaire from before. His eyes were bloodshot. His suit was wrinkled. For the first time, he looked scared. Clara. I didn't open the door. He remained outside. Please. I laughed. The sound made him freeze. 10 years. 10 years of loyalty. 10 years of sacrifice. 10 years of humiliation. And now he was saying please. Do you remember what you said when Lily died? Silence. I continued. You told me to go home and make chicken soup. His face turned white. Clara, get out. Please listen to me.
No.
Then I hung up. For the first time, I heard him crying outside my door. I felt absolutely nothing. Things became worse. Much worse. The investigation uncovered massive tax fraud, bribery, money laundering, illegal acquisitions. The company accounts were frozen. Banks demanded immediate repayment of loans. Business partners abandoned ship. Executives began testifying against one another. Everyone was trying to save themselves. Nobody was trying to save Jason, because everyone knew Gibson Group was already dead. Then fate decided it wasn't finished. Sylvia's pregnancy had never been stable. The stress from the scandal triggered complications. She was rushed into surgery. The child didn't survive. When she woke up, she blamed Jason. If you weren't such a criminal, none of this would have happened. She screamed at him. You promised me everything. Then she left him. The same woman he had destroyed our marriage for walked away without looking back. His mother suffered the next blow. Investigators discovered her involvement in multiple financial crimes, including transferring assets obtained through fraudulent means. The old woman who had spent years threatening me was arrested in front of reporters. As officers led her away, she screamed Jason's name. He couldn't help her. He couldn't even help himself. A month later, the divorce certificate arrived. I signed it without hesitation. Jason signed it from a detention center. The marriage that had consumed 10 years of my life ended with 2 signatures. The trial became one of the biggest scandals in the country. Every month, new evidence surfaced. Every month, another former ally turned against Jason. The media called it the Gibson collapse. What they didn't know was that the worst punishment had not arrived yet. 5 years into a sentence, Jason looked 20 years older. His hair had turned gray. His back was slightly bent. The once arrogant billionaire spent his days staring through iron bars. Nobody visited him. Not Sylvia. Not his mother, who was serving her own sentence. Not the friends who used to crowd around him at banquets. Nobody. One afternoon, a prison guard stopped outside his cell. You have a package. Jason frowned. He hadn't received a package in years. Inside was a flash drive. When the prison staff checked it, they found a single video. The sender was anonymous. Jason pressed play. The screen flickered. Then he froze. Lily. She was sitting in a hospital bed.
Weak, pale,
but awake. The recording date was 1 day before her death. Jason's hands began shaking. The video started. Jason. Lily's voice was soft. I don't have much time. Tears immediately filled his eyes. He leaned closer. For years he had convinced himself that Lily never woke up, that she never knew, that she never had a chance to say anything. Then Lily smiled sadly. Do you know what's funny? You were never the person I hated most. Jason's breath caught. I hated myself. I hated myself for introducing my sister to you. His face went white. Every word felt like a knife. I watched Clara sacrifice everything. Her dreams. Her youth. Our family's heirlooms. Even her own health. And every time she defended you, I believed you deserved it. Lily looked directly into the camera. Then she said the words that would haunt him forever. Jason, I never hated you for choosing money over me. I hated you because my sister loved you more than herself. And you treated that love like trash. Jason broke. A strangled sound escaped his throat. No, but Lily continued. When Clara sold our family bracelet, she cried all night. When she donated part of her liver, she almost died. When your mother humiliated her, she hid in the bathroom so nobody would hear her crying. You knew all of that. You knew. Jason's body shook violently. He remembered every moment, every sacrifice, every lie he told himself, every time he chose ambition, every time he chose convenience, every time he chose someone else. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I hope one day you understand what you've done. I hope one day you feel even 1% of what Clara felt. Then she smiled sadly. But by the time you do, my sister will be gone. The screen went black. For a long time, Jason sat motionless. Then he screamed. A raw, animal scream. The kind that comes from a soul finally realizing it destroyed itself. Prison guards rushed over. They found him collapsed on the floor. Still clutching the screen. Still crying. Still replaying the video. Over and over. And over again. The video somehow leaked. Within days it spread across the internet. Millions watched Lily's final message. Millions heard her words. Millions learned the truth. Jason became the face of betrayal. His name turned into a joke. A warning. A curse. People spat when they heard it. Business schools used him as an example of corruption. His legacy vanished. Everything he built was erased. Meanwhile, Clara never watched the video. She didn't care. She had spent years building the Lily Foundation. Hundreds of women received help there. Many started new lives. Many escaped situations similar to hers. When reporters asked about Jason, she only had one answer. I have nothing to say about him, because he no longer mattered. 3 years later, Jason suffered a stroke. The doctors saved him. Unfortunately for him, because death still wasn't ready. Another year passed. Then another. His body deteriorated. His eyesight weakened. His hands trembled constantly. The former billionaire needed help simply getting out of bed. Every night he dreamed of the same things. The street stall where he and Clara sold ice cream. The tiny apartment where they first lived. The young woman who believed in him when nobody else did. Then he would wake up in a prison cell. Alone. Every single time. One winter evening, nearly 15 years after his arrest, Jason collapsed again. This time the doctors knew. There would be no recovery. He lay in the prison hospital staring at the ceiling. A nurse asked softly, "Do you want us to contact any family?" Jason laughed weakly. Family. He had destroyed the only family he ever had.
No.
The nurse nodded and left. Hours later, snow began falling outside. Jason slowly opened an old wallet he had hidden. For years. Inside was a faded photograph.
Clara. Lily.
And him. Taken before the company. Before the money. Before the betrayals. Before he became a monster. His fingers shook as he touched Clara's smiling face. Tears rolled down his wrinkled cheeks. For the first time in decades, he finally admitted the truth. But to the empty room, "I was wrong." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." There was no answer. Only silence. A few minutes later, the heart monitor emitted a long, flat tone. Jason Gibson died alone, only suffering with his meaningless regret. The next morning, Clara stood beside Lily's grave with fresh flowers. The winter wind brushed against her face. For some reason, she felt lighter, as if a door somewhere had finally closed. She smiled at Lily, then turned and walked away, never looking back.